The throne room of the Zalari Empire was built from black stone, carved with glowing silver lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ceilings reached so high that voices echoed for long seconds before dying in the distance. Giant banners of alien, silk hung from the walls, each showing the victories of the empire. On the floor, hundreds of nobles, warriors, and priests gathered, their eyes filled with arrogance. In the middle of the hall stood a human, his hands bound in chains of glowing crystal. He looked small compared to the towering aliens around him. His clothes were torn, his face marked with dust and sweat, but his eyes, sharp, steady, and calm, did not waver. The nobles burst into laughter, their voices mixed with the echoes of the chamber. "Look at him," one alien lord sneered, his forearms crossed proudly. "This weak creature from Earth, he dares to resist us?" Another laughed so hard his shoulders shook. "Humans are nothing. They build wooden ships, they breathe dirty air, they fight with sticks, and yet he stood against the warriors of the Empire." The crowd roared. They shouted insults, calling the human fragile, powerless, unworthy of standing inside. The throne room. The throne itself stood at the far end of the hall, high upon a wide platform of stone steps. It was massive, carved from a single block of ancient rock older than the Empire itself. Its design was sharp and jagged, like frozen lightning. At its center glowed faint blue light, cold, watchful, almost alive. The throne was no ordinary seat. For centuries, only the true emperor of the Zalari could sit upon it. Anyone else who dared to try had been burned, broken, or thrown aside by the throne's strange energy. Legend said the throne could feel the soul of whoever sat on it. A noble stepped forward, his voice mocking. "Perhaps we should let the human sit upon it. Let the throne burn him for all of us to see." The crowd howled with delight. "Yes, let him try." The human was pushed forward by guards. His steps echoed on the cold floor. He said nothing. He only looked at the throne, his expression unreadable. "Sit, human," one of the priests commanded, his voice filled with cruelty. "Show us what happens when weakness touches power." The guards shoved him to the steps. The human stumbled but did not fall. He climbed the platform slowly, his chains clinking with each step. Every eye in the room watched. Some grinned, others whispered, waiting for screams. He reached the throne. For a moment he stood still, staring at it. The blue glow seemed to respond, pulsing stronger, brighter. The nobles noticed and laughed harder. "Even the throne is angry," shouted one. The human sat down. His body touched the ancient stone. His hands rested on the carved armrests. He expected pain. He expected fire. He expected to be thrown aside as the aliens wished, but nothing like that happened. The hall grew silent. The throne's blue glow spread, running across its carvings, flowing like rivers of light. The lines of energy crept up into the human's body, wrapping him in shining streams. His chains shattered into dust. The air hummed with deep, powerful sound. The aliens froze. Their laughter turned into gasps. The priests stepped back, their faces pale. The human's chest glowed with the same light as the throne. His veins burned with energy. His eyes shone brighter, as if the throne itself had awakened inside him. Whispers broke through the silence. This is impossible. The throne rejects all but the emperor. Why does it accept him?" The human sat tall. He felt the energy run through his bones, his heart, his mind. Visions flickered in his head. Cities of fire, stars collapsing, fleets burning. The throne was not rejecting him. The throne was speaking to him. For the first time, the laughter of the aliens was gone. Instead, fear filled the air. One noble stepped forward, his voice shaking. It must be a trick." Another whispered, "No, it is the prophecy. The throne has chosen." The human slowly looked at them. He did not speak, but his eyes said everything. He was no longer a prisoner, no longer the weak being they mocked. In that moment, he was something more. The throne room trembled as the energy pulsed once again. The banners shook, dust fell from the ceiling, and then the throne spoke with a voice of thunder, echoing inside every mind present. Gay is the one. The hall erupted into chaos. Nobles screamed, warriors raised weapons, priests dropped to their knees. Some shouted to kill him at once. Others bowed in terror. The human remained seated, calm, his body glowing with power he had never known. He had been mocked. He had been treated as nothing. But now, the throne had chosen only him. The game had changed, and the galaxy would never laugh again. The chamber was still trembling. Dust drifted from the ceiling, and the once proud nobles stood frozen, their arrogance shattered. They had expected fire to consume the human, or for the throne to throw him like a toy against the walls. Instead, the ancient seat of power had awakened in his presence. The human sat still, his back pressed against the cold stone, but it no longer felt cold. The throne's energy seeped into him, pulsing with every heartbeat. Blue streams of light traveled through his veins, glowing like rivers beneath his skin. Each pulse was heavy, strong, like the footsteps of giants inside his chest. He closed his eyes, and visions appeared. He saw battlefields stretching across countless stars, where alien fleets clashed in endless wars. He saw ancient emperors raising their hands, leading armies with voices that carried like thunder. He saw the throne itself being carved from the heart of a dying star, made to bind itself to the will of one chosen ruler. When he opened his eyes again, the visions faded. But the whispers remained. They were not words of fear. They were words of command, words of destiny. The throne was speaking to him. The nobles could not believe it. One of the priests stepped forward, his hands trembling as he held up a staff of crystal. His voice broke as he spoke. "This cannot be. The throne belongs to the blood of the Zilari emperors. No human can be accepted. This is an abomination." But his words carried no strength. The glow of the throne grew brighter, and the human's chains lay shattered on the ground like ash. He lifted his hand slowly, and the light followed, forming shapes in the air, symbols of power glowing like fireflies. Gasps echoed across the chamber. "Impossible," one noble whispered. "The throne responds only to its master. It obeys him." The human did not speak. He did not yet understand why the throne accepted him, but he could feel the weight of it pressing down. The energy was vast, endless, but it did not crush him. Instead, it lifted him as though he had been carrying chains all his life, and only now they were gone. The guards, uncertain, raised their weapons. Spears tipped with plasma energy hummed as they pointed at the throne. "Kill him before the bond is complete," shouted a noble, his voice breaking with fear. "Do it now before it is too late." The guards hesitated. Their hands shook. They had seen the throne burn challengers alive. Yet this human sat unharmed, glowing like a living beacon. To raise weapons against him felt like raising weapons against the throne itself. Still, they moved forward. The human opened his eyes, and the throne's glow intensified. The blue light burst outward, filling the room like a storm. The guards were thrown back, their weapons shattering into pieces before they touched him. The nobles fell to the floor, covering their faces. The throne's voice thundered again, not in words they could all hear, but in the silence that followed. The air itself seemed to whisper, "He is chosen." The human breathed heavily, trying to control the storm inside him. He was not a king. He was not a soldier of fleets. He had been dragged here in chains, mocked as weak, treated as a joke, and yet the throne accepted him. Why? He looked down at his hands. They shook with power that was not his own. He remembered his home, Earth, far away, small and forgotten by the galaxy. Humanity was mocked, laughed at, treated as children in a universe of giants. But perhaps the throne saw something different. Perhaps it saw what the aliens could not. The nobles began to whisper among themselves. "This must be stopped. He will bring ruin." No, it is prophecy. The throne has waited for him. He is not one of us. He must die before the bond is complete. The human rose slowly from the throne. The glow still wrapped around him, but he felt his strength returning. He looked across the hall at the aliens who had laughed at him only moments ago. Their laughter was gone. In its place was fear. He spoke for the first time since entering the throne room. His voice was quiet, yet it carried across the hall. You thought I was nothing. You thought this was a joke. But the throne does not laugh. The words echoed, simple but sharp. The nobles recoiled as though struck. Suddenly a roar of anger broke the silence. From the shadows, a group of armored warriors stormed forward. They wore black steel, their helmets shaped like fangs. These were the Emperor's guardians, loyal only to the throne, or so they had always claimed. Their leader raised his blade. We end this now. The throne will not be stolen by an outsider. The warriors charged, but the throne answered before the human could move. A shield of blue energy erupted around him, shimmering like a star. The warriors' blades clashed against it, sparking and shattering like glass. One by one, they were thrown back across the floor. The nobles gasped in terror. The priests began chanting desperate prayers. The human did not smile. He did not laugh. His face remained calm, but inside he felt the storm grow stronger. The throne had accepted him, but acceptance was not enough. It demanded something more. It demanded that he prove himself. The hall fell silent again, but the fear remained. The human looked up at the banners of the Empire, at the faces of the aliens who had mocked him. He felt the throne's whispers in his mind, louder now, clearer. The bond was not complete. This was only the beginning. And outside the throne room across the galaxy, the news had already begun to spread. A human sat upon the Emperor's throne, and the throne had accepted him. The throne room remained heavy with silence long after the glow dimmed. The nobles trembled, the priest whispered prayers under their breath, and the warriors lay scattered on the floor. The human sat still, breathing hard, but his eyes burned with the throne's light. Word of what happened spread faster than any ship could fly. Messengers carried the tale to every corner of the Empire. Within hours, entire systems were buzzing, with one question: why did the throne accept a human? Across the stars, the reactions were violent and divided. The Council of Nobles, in the capital city's council chamber, noble houses gathered in a storm of voices. Tall figures with jeweled robes pounded their fists on the tables. He must be destroyed, one shouted. If he takes the throne fully, the Empire will fall into human hands. Another noble, older and sharper, shook his head. You saw it. The throne does not lie. If it chose him, then killing him may bring disaster to us all. The council argued until the air was thick with rage. Some wanted blood. Others whispered of prophecy, of ancient scripts that spoke of an outsider who would rise when the Empire had grown rotten. But all agreed on one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. The priests in the holy temples, alien priests gathered around blazing fires. Their eyes reflected fear as they repeated the same words. He is chosen. The stars warned us. Some fell to their knees, claiming the human was a divine sign. Others spat with hatred, declaring him a false ruler sent to destroy their traditions. The high priest struck the floor with his staff. The throne was made by the ancients. If it accepts him, then the ancients themselves have spoken. But beware, such gifts are never free. He will bring change, and change always comes with blood. The common people on distant colonies. The news reached the ears of ordinary aliens who had never seen a human in their lives. They say the throne glowed for him, one merchant whispered in a market. Lies, another scoffed. Humans are weak. This is a trick to scare us. But rumors grew faster than doubt. Many began to believe that the Empire's endless wars and corruption had called for a new leader. Some cheered in secret. Others locked their doors in fear of what was coming. The enemies of the Empire beyond the borders, rival empires, listened carefully. Spies carried the tale to their rulers, and the galaxy's enemies laughed. So the mighty Zalari throne has chosen an outsider? A human? One warlord sneered. This will tear them apart from inside. But beneath their laughter was unease. The throne had power they could not match. If it truly bonded to a human, then the galaxy's balance was at risk. Back in the palace, the human stood before the throne, his body still glowing faintly. He felt the weight of 1,000 whispers pressing into his mind. The throne showed him fragments of ancient battles, of empires rising and falling. It was as if the throne carried the memory of every ruler it had ever accepted. Yet in all those visions, he saw no human. Only now, with him, had the throne chosen differently. He turned his gaze to the nobles. Some still knelt in fear, others glared with hatred. "You want me dead?" he said softly. His voice carried across the chamber. "You want the throne to reject me. But it hasn't. And it won't." One noble spat at the floor. "You are nothing. A creature from a backwater world. We will never call you emperor." The throne pulsed in answer, sending a ripple of light that silenced the hall. But outside, plans were already being made. The assassins plotted. The shadows of the capital, a secret meeting took place. Figures cloaked in black leaned over a table of maps. "He cannot be allowed to live," one hissed. "If he survives, the throne will make him stronger. Soon, he will be untouchable. We strike before the bond is sealed," another whispered. "He is still flesh, still breakable." A knife was laid upon the table, its blade coated with venom that could kill even the strongest warrior. The plan was simple. Strike him in the palace before the galaxy could rally to his side. The human's resolve inside the throne room. The human felt the storm around him, though no words were spoken. The throne whispered of enemies, of daggers in the dark, of voices plotting against him. He had no army, no allies, no crown. But he had the throne. He stood tall, the chains at his feet turned to dust. He looked up at the banners of the empire, at the faces of those who wanted him dead. "I did not ask for this," he said quietly. "But if the throne has chosen me, then I will not run." The glow around him deepened, brighter than before. The throne was no longer testing him. It was beginning to merge with him, and somewhere deep in the galaxy, ancient machinery stirred, awakened by the bond. Ships that had slept for centuries hummed with life. Weapons long forgotten lit up in hidden vaults. The throne's choice was echoing across the stars. The throne room's silence shattered as the dagger flashed. It came from the shadow of a noble's robe, a blade coated in venom meant to kill even the strongest warriors. The assassin moved quick, faster than the eye could follow, striking toward the human's heart. But the throne reacted first. A surge of blue light burst from the armrests, wrapping around the human in a shield of energy. The dagger struck the barrier and shattered into glowing shards that scattered across the floor. The force of the impact hurled the assassin backward, his body crashing into a stone pillar. Gasps filled the hall. Some nobles screamed, others dropped to their knees. The human stood still, his body glowing brighter with every heartbeat. He looked down at his hands. They trembled, but not from fear, from power. The throne had defended him, not because he commanded it, but because it had chosen him. The throne's whisper echoed in his mind again. "The unworthy shall fall, the worthy shall rise." He stepped forward, his chains now nothing but dust at his feet. The nobles shrank back as he moved, their arrogance broken. Yet he saw the hatred in their eyes. They would not stop. They would try again and again. The throne knew this too. It would not let him sit idly. It demanded proof. Visions of the trial as the human touched the throne once more, his vision blurred. The throne pulled him into a storm of light. He was no longer in the chamber. He stood in an endless void filled with burning stars. Before him appeared shapes, giants made of flame and shadow, the echoes of emperors past. Their voices thundered like storms. Every ruler is tested. Every master of the throne must face the trial. The human felt the weight of their eyes, heavy and unrelenting. "You were mocked," You were nothing, one voice said. Now the throne has raised you. But are you strong enough to bear its crown? The void shifted. He stood now on a battlefield of stone and fire. Alien warriors, endless in number, surged toward him, their weapons glowing red. The throne whispered, "This is not illusion. This is judgment." The first test. Courage. The warriors charged. The human had no sword, no shield. He clenched his fists and braced himself. The energy of the throne responded, flowing through his arms, forming blades of blue light that extended from his hands. The first wave struck, and he cut through them, each strike faster than his mind could think. The light guided him, his body moving like a storm. Sweat poured down his face, but he did not stop. He shouted, not in fear, but in defiance. The warriors fell one by one until the battlefield lay silent. A voice thundered, "Courage proven." The second test. Mercy. The field shifted again. Now he stood before a group of prisoners, humans, their faces broken, chained just as he had been. Among them were children crying in silence. An alien commander appeared, holding a blade to one prisoner's throat. "Take the throne's power for yourself," the figure said, "and abandon them, or share your power with them and risk losing it." The human's heart raced. The throne pulsed with warning. This was not a battle of strength. This was a battle of choice. He stepped forward, placing his hand on the chains. The energy spread from him into the prisoners, breaking their bonds and filling them with light. The children stood tall, their eyes glowing with the throne's spark. The commander vanished. The prisoners bowed to him. The voice spoke again. Mercy chosen. The final test. Resolve. The battlefield turned dark. The stars above shattered into pieces. From the void rose a monstrous shape, taller than mountains, its body made of fire and endless shadow. Its voice was deep, cruel, hungry. "You are not emperor," it growled. "You are weak." A human pretending to wear the crown. The creature struck its fist like a falling star. The human raised his arms. The throne's light surged, forming a shield, but the impact forced him to his knees. His bones ached, his chest burned. He thought of Earth, small and forgotten, mocked by these aliens. He thought of the laughter, the chains, the humiliation. He thought of the throne's whisper. "He is the one." He screamed and stood, the shield bursting outward in a wave of energy. The shadow monster staggered back. He charged, his body, blazing with light, and struck through its chest. The void shattered like glass. The voice of the emperors roared in unison. Resolve proven. Return to the throne room. The vision faded. He was back in the throne room, standing tall. The nobles gasped when they saw him. The glow around his body was stronger than ever, his eyes burning like twin stars. The throne pulsed beneath him, louder than before. The bond was complete. One noble whispered in horror, "The trial." He survived it. Another fell to the ground, covering his face. No one survives the full trial. The human looked down at the crowd. He had faced the throne's judgment, and he had not broken. But as the chamber trembled, he knew this was only the beginning. For outside the palace, armies were gathering. Rivals within the empire were sharpening their blades. And beyond the stars, enemies who feared the throne were already preparing for war. The throne had chosen him. The trial had proven him. Now, the galaxy would test him. The throne room shook as though the palace itself knew the trial was over. The human stood at the center, his body wrapped in the throne's glow. The nobles dared not breathe. The priests pressed their foreheads to the floor. Even the guards, sworn to protect the empire, lowered their weapons. But silence did not last long. Outside the palace walls, chaos had already begun. The news of his survival spread faster than fire. Ships were leaving orbit, some to flee, some to rally armies. Factions that had hated each other for centuries now agreed on one thing: the human must not rule. From the balcony of the throne room, the human looked out into the night sky. Dozens of warships circled above the capital, their weapons ready. The empire itself had turned against him. The throne whispered in his mind, "This is your final test, not trial of vision, trial of blood." The betrayal, one noble found his courage, or his madness. He stepped forward, his robe glittering with jewels, his voice loud with rage. "This is not our emperor," he shouted. "He is a thief, a trick, a mistake. The throne lies." Others echoed his words, trembling but defiant. The noble lifted a dagger high, pointing it at the human. "Kill him now, or everything we built will fall." Dozens of guards rushed forward at once, their weapons glowing red. The human stood tall, his face calm, his eyes burning brighter. The throne responded. Its power flared, covering him in living armor of light. Jagged plates formed across his body, glowing with the same ancient runes carved into the throne. His steps echoed like thunder as he descended from the platform. The guards struck, plasma blades slashed, spears hummed, but every strike shattered against his armor. He moved with speed that no human should possess, the throne's power guiding his every motion. With each step, enemies fell until the floor was littered with broken weapons and defeated warriors. The noble's laughter had long since turned to screams. The voice across the stars, the throne pulsed again, brighter than ever, and a shockwave of light erupted outward. It traveled beyond the walls, beyond the city, beyond the planet itself. Every ship in orbit froze. Their systems glitched, their lights flickered. Then a voice rang out, not from speakers, not from radios, but inside the minds of every living being in the empire, the human's voice. "You mocked me. You chained me. You tried to break me. But the throne chose me, and I endured its trials. Now hear this. The throne does not bow to your bloodlines, your titles, or your pride. It bows only to the worthy." The galaxy heard his words. Entire fleets paused in their advance. Soldiers gripped their weapons, but hesitated. Priests fell to their knees, whispering in awe. The enemies strike, but not all paused. From the blackness of space, a rival empire's fleet emerged, hundreds of warships bristling with weapons. They had come to destroy the throne itself, to ensure no human could rise. Their commander sneered as he gave the order. Fire! Thousands of beams of light rained down toward the palace, each blast enough to level a city. The capital shook as the sky turned to fire. The nobles screamed. The guards fled. But the human remained seated upon the throne, his eyes locked on the burning heavens. He whispered, "Not today." The throne answered. The awakening of the fleet deep beneath the HFY Palace ancient hangars rumbled. For centuries they had been sealed, their secrets forgotten. Now one by one colossal doors split open. From the shadows rose ships unlike anything in the galaxy. Warships of impossible size, their hulls carved with the same runes as the throne. Engines roared, powered not by fuel, but by the throne's own heart. The alien fleets above panicked as the sky filled with these forgotten giants. One after another they turned their weapons toward the invaders. In a single moment, beams of blue light cut across the heavens. Enemy ships exploded, their fire raining down like falling stars. The throne's fleet had awakened, and it obeyed only him. The emperor's rise. When the battle ended, silence fell once again. The rival fleet was gone, reduced to ash among the stars. The nobles looked up at the human in awe. The priests whispered prayers to his name. The human stood, his armor of light glowing, his voice carrying across the hall. "I am not your prisoner. I am not your joke. I am not your mistake. I am your emperor." The throne pulsed, sending his words across the galaxy. Entire planets heard him. Entire species felt the truth in their bones. The nobles fell to their knees. The guards pressed, their foreheads to the floor. Even those who hated him could not deny the throne's choice. Final twist as the human raised his hand, the throne whispered one last time. "You are the one, but you are not the last." Visions filled his mind, of humanity rising, of Earth's forgotten people standing tall among the stars, of fleets greater than any alien empire had ever known. He realized then the throne had not only chosen him, it had chosen humanity. The galaxy would never laugh again. It would kneel.